Today's video is a how-to set up AR10360T and AR10100T. So let's get started. When setting up an AR10360T or AR10100T, is the 360 model will allow you to configure AS3X settings and safe settings. First thing we need to do is bind the transmitter and receiver. This can be done one of two ways: holding the bind button while powering up the system, or power up the system and within a few seconds of the receiver getting power, you can hold the button down. Now let's go ahead and bind the system. I'm going to hold the bind button while I power the system up, and you will notice that the receiver will start to flash. That means it's in bind mode, and then we'll go ahead and connect with the radio. Now I personally go down here and highlight the bind menu, because if you go into the bind menu and you don't start the process quick enough, it will back out to this menu anyways. So let's go ahead and power the system up while we hold the button. As I mentioned, it will start to flash. And we can click on bind.
Binding. DSMX 22 milliseconds. Telemetry. Bind complete.
Now we've completed the bind process. Next thing let's talk about is the satellite telemetry receiver. You will notice that it's not lit up because we didn't connect it to our main receiver, AR10360T. So what happens is we need to plug that into a SRXL2 port. You can see mine is already taken up on the normal spot because I have an external UBEC. So I'm gonna hook it into one of the extra two that we have on the receiver. As we talked about in the overview video, we have two extra ones and they're labeled B and L. That corresponds with the flight log. So let's scroll to the flight log real quick, and you will notice A has one fade. That means we've had one fade between the receiver and the radio. Now, if we use the B port for our external satellite telemetry receiver, it's going to show up here. If we use L, it will show up here. So just keep that in mind. If you're running multiple, let's say we're running two additional ones, one's B, one's L, know which side of the plane that you put them on, because then that will allow you to know which telemetry satellite receiver is having a signal issue. Now let's connect our telemetry satellite receiver. We have B SRXL2 and L SRXL2. Now we've got it connected. And you notice on the telemetry satellite receiver, you have a bind button as well. So you can use the bind button on the receiver here or the satellite receiver here. Let's go ahead and power the system up. Both lights are solid orange, so that means they're both operating and powered up. Now let's go to forward programming and set up our receiver. Push enter. Go down to forward programming. Now you may scroll down and not see forward programming and think, well, BD, I don't have that option. The reason why forward programming doesn't pop up is if you're not connected to the receiver and the receiver is powered up. So push enter. Gyro settings, first time setup. For this tutorial, we're going to assume that away from the camera, where the antennas are, is the front of the plane, and towards the camera, where the channels are, is the tail of the airplane. First time setup. Make sure the model has been configured, including wing type, reversing, travel, trim, etc. before continuing setup. I've already done that before we started the tutorial. If you need help on configuring your airplane, look up one of my previous videos titled How to Set Up an RC Plane, and that will walk you through completely to get you to this point in the setup. So let's go to the bottom. Any wing type, channel assignment, sub-trim, or servo reversing change require running through initial setup again. So as it mentioned in the previous screen, you need to have this airplane configured before you get to this point. Set the model level, which we've done because our receiver is level on the table. You can also set the orientation manually if you want. We'll push enter. Now it says set the model on its nose and press continue. If the orientation on the next screen is wrong, go back and try again. So as I mentioned, the front of the receiver where the antennas are is going to be the nose of the plane. Let's continue. Now we verify on the screen that this matches how the receiver is sitting in the airplane. The diagram of the receiver where the bind button's on the front, that's where the antennas are. And where the model number is where the channels are. The diagram's a little off from the new receiver. However, with those two lined up, we know that we're in the correct orientation. Now we have gain channel select. This is the channel that we want to assign if we want to use our rotary knob, for example, to adjust the gains of AS3X while we're in the air. So we're going to scroll down to channel 7. Actually, we're going to use 8 because that's what it's normally set up to. Input, we're going to adjust the knob. Now we go to apply. Here it shows the receiver's rebooting. That basically saves the settings we just programmed through the radio into the receiver. We go back into forward programming, go to gyro settings. You will notice now we have AS3X settings, flight mode setup, system setup, and first time safe setup. Next we got a flight mode setup. In this menu, we're going to assign the positions that we want AS3X to be on and off on our E switch. We're going to set it up so that the bottom position is AS3X off, middle is AS3X on, and up is safe mode. So you notice as we toggled the switch, it changed on the screen as well. So let's go down to the very bottom and inhibit AS3X. So now when we go to the middle position, flight mode 2, it will be on, and flight mode 1 at the top, which will be safe mode. Okay, now that we have that set up, let's go down to first time safe setup. Before setting up safe, a flight mode channel must be configured. You can click on FM channel here if you want to go ahead and assign that if you already haven't. However, that's why I started at the top, because we went ahead and knocked that out. So let's go down to continue. Flight mode 1, and that's going to show whatever position that you have the switch in. So it says select the desired flight mode switch position to adjust settings for each flight mode. Go to next. AS3X gains must be tuned and active in safe flight modes to help reduce wobble. And then we're going to level the model and capture the attitude. We've got our model set level because receiver's flat on the table. So we'll go to next. Here's where we can set up safe for flight mode 1, 2, or 3. If you want it on all 3 positions, you can. However, as I mentioned, we're going to set it up so AS3X is off with the switch all the way down. The middle is going to be AS3X on, and safe is at the top. So the only one we need to go right here and activate for safe mode is flight mode 1.